Captain Hyen-Woo Kim stood on the observation deck of the colony ship New Dawn, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. The blue and green planet sparkled like a jewel against the darkness of space. He had left home many times before, but this journey felt different. This time, he would never return. The ship carried 50,000 people to Proxima Centauri, a journey that would take 30 years even with their fastest engines. By the time they arrived, Earth would be a memory, a place their children would only know from stories and videos. Beside him, Chief Engineer Dayun Park checked her tablet. Reviewing the ship's systems for the 100th time, she was thorough, almost obsessive about details. Hyen-Woo appreciated that quality. In deep space, a small mistake could kill everyone aboard. All systems are running perfectly, Dayun said, not looking up from her screen. We'll begin the first sleep cycle in 6 hours. Most of the passengers are already in their quarters. Hyen-Woo nodded. The sleep cycles would make the journey bearable. People would spend most of the 30 years in suspended animation, aging only a few years while decades passed outside. It was proven technology, safe and reliable. Still, something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it, just a feeling in his gut that made him want to stay awake a little longer. Look at it, he said, gesturing toward Earth. 300 years ago, we were killing each other over borders and resources. Now we're one world, reaching for the stars. It's beautiful, isn't it? Dayun finally looked up. Her expression softened as she gazed at their homeworld. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, the wars, the pollution, the hatred. She said she never thought humanity would survive, let alone thrive. And now here we are, building new worlds. The year was 2347, and humanity had finally grown up. The nations of old Earth had merged into a single planetary government. The climate had been stabilized, the oceans cleaned, the forests restored. Technology had solved most of the problems that once seemed impossible. Fusion power provided unlimited energy. Genetic engineering had eliminated most diseases. Artificial intelligence helped manage the complex systems that kept billions of people fed and healthy. Mars hosted 5 million people in underground cities. Europa Station orbited Jupiter's moon, harvesting water from beneath the ice. Dozens of asteroid mining operations pulled precious metals from the belt. And now, colony ships like New Dawn were heading to other star systems, carrying humanity's hope to distant worlds. Captain, a voice crackled over the intercom. It was Lieutenant Taeyong Choi from the bridge. We're picking up some strange readings from Earth's direction. Could you come take a look? Hyen-Woo exchanged a glance with Dayun. They both headed toward the bridge, walking through the ship's wide corridors. People smiled and waved as they passed. These were pioneers, volunteers who had left everything behind for a chance to build something new. They were scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, artists, the best humanity had to offer. The bridge was a circular room filled with holographic displays. Taeyang stood at the main console, his young face creased with confusion. Sir, the sensors are going crazy. There's some kind of energy buildup near Earth. I've never seen anything like it. Hyen-Woo studied the display. Numbers scrolled past, showing energy readings that climbed higher and higher. Could it be a solar flare? Some kind of stellar activity? No, sir. The sun is stable. This is coming from Earth itself. Or near it, at least. Taeyong's fingers flew across the console, trying to make sense of the data. Captain, I think you should see this. The main view screen shifted to show Earth. The planet filled the display, beautiful and serene. And then, without warning, it began to glow. A soft blue light surrounded the entire world, growing brighter with each passing second. The moon, visible beside Earth, glowed with the same strange light. What is that? Dayun whispered. The light grew blinding. Hyen-Woo raised his hand to shield his eyes. Alarms blared across the bridge. The sensors screamed warnings about impossible energy levels. And then, in a flash that lit up the entire view screen, Earth vanished. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the empty space where their homeworld had been just moments before. The sun still burned. The other planets still orbited, But Earth and its moon were simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. "This isn't possible," Taiyang said, his voice shaking. "Planets don't just disappear." "They can't." Haiyanhua's mind raced. He tried to make sense of what he had just witnessed, but there was no logical explanation. "Try to contact Mars and Europa Station. We need to know if anyone else saw this." The next hours were chaos. Communications channels exploded with panicked messages. Mars had seen it. Europa Station had seen it. Every human outpost in the solar system had watched their home world vanish in a flash of impossible light. Scientists scrambled for explanations. Religious leaders called it divine intervention. Conspiracy theorists blamed secret government experiments, but nobody had answers. Earth was gone, taking 4 billion people with it. The survivors numbered barely 20 million, scattered across hostile environments that could not sustain them without constant support from Earth, support that would never come again. Haiyanhu stood alone on the observation deck later that night, staring at the empty space where Earth should have been. The ship's systems had calculated their new situation. Without Earth's resources and guidance, the human colonies would struggle. Many would fail. The asteroid mines would run out of supplies. Europa Station would collapse within a year. Mars might survive, but just barely. New Dawn was the lucky one. They had everything they needed to reach Proxima Centauri and establish a new colony. They would survive. But they would be alone, the last remnant of humanity's golden age. Dayun joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and stood beside him in silence. They both knew what this meant. Humanity's great adventure had become a desperate struggle for survival. The unified world was gone. Now there were only scattered fragments, isolated and afraid.
Nice.
"What do we do?" Dayun asked quietly. Haiyanhu took a sip of his coffee. It was bitter and strong, exactly what he needed. "We keep going. We reach Proxima Centauri. We build a new home. And we remember Earth, so that one day, somehow, we might understand what happened." In the darkness of space, New Dawn sailed on, carrying the seeds of humanity toward an uncertain future. 700 years had passed since Earth disappeared from the universe. The humans who watched it vanish were long dead, their great-great-grandchildren scattered across hundreds of worlds. The memory of Earth had faded from history into legend, from legend into myth. Most young humans had never seen pictures of the blue planet. They knew only the worlds where they were born, harsh and demanding places that shaped them into something different from their ancestors. "Jiwan." Li guided her ship through the debris field with practiced ease. The stray star was old and battered, held together by repairs and stubborn determination, but it was hers. She had won it in a card game 5 years ago, or stolen it, depending on who told the story. Either way, it was home now. "Taiyang, tell me we're getting something good from this wreck," she called toward the navigation station. Her navigator, a thin young man with nervous hands, studied the scanner display. Definitely pre-collective tech. Could be human, could be one of the dead species. Won't know until we crack it open. Taiyang glanced at her. "You sure this is worth the risk? We're pretty deep in restricted space." Giwan shrugged. Risk was part of the job. She made her living salvaging old technology from forgotten battlefields and abandoned stations. The collective didn't like scavengers poking around in restricted zones, but they couldn't patrol everywhere. There were always gaps, always opportunities for someone brave or stupid enough to take them. "Yunji, how are we looking on the weapons?" Giwan asked. From the gun station, Yunji Han checked her systems. She was a stocky woman with scarred hands and a perpetual scowl. 2 missiles left, plasma cannon at 60% charge. If we run into collective patrol, we're running, not fighting.
Okay.
When have we ever fought? Qiwan grinned. Fighting the collective was suicide. The galaxy belonged to them, had belonged to them for thousands of years. 7 ancient civilizations that had reached the stars before humans even discovered fire. They called themselves the Collective, and they ruled everything worth ruling. The Volari were philosophers and scientists. Tall beings of pure logic, who rarely showed emotion. The Corvan Empire was the opposite, a warrior race that loved battle and honor above all else. The Whispers were energy beings that humans could barely perceive, existing in multiple dimensions at once. The other four species each had their own cultures, their own territories, their own reasons for maintaining the galactic order. And then there were the younger races. Species like humanity that had developed space travel in the last few thousand years. They were tolerated, allowed to exist on the fringes of collective space, but never truly welcomed. Never equals, humans had it worse than most. After Earth vanished, the scattered colonies had spent centuries fighting among themselves. War after war, faction against faction, each group developing their own culture and forgetting they were ever one people. Some colonies embraced genetic modification, changing themselves to survive toxic worlds. Others built massive war fleets and conquered their neighbors. A few tried to preserve the old ways, the memory of peaceful Earth, but they were exceptions. The collective watched humanity tear itself apart and decided humans were too violent, too unstable to be trusted with advanced technology. Certain weapons were forbidden, certain worlds were off limits. Break the rules, and collective enforcers would arrive to deliver justice. G1 had broken plenty of rules in her 30 years. She was born on a mining station orbiting a dead world, raised by smugglers and thieves who taught her that survival mattered more than laws. The collective's rules were made by species that had never known real hunger, real desperation. Easy to be moral when you lived in paradise. "Captain, we've got a problem." Tai Yang's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Picking up a collective patrol ship on long-range sensors? They're heading this way. Of course they are." Guan pulled up the navigation display. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 minutes before they're in scanning range. Not enough time to crack open the derelict and see what treasures it held." Ji-Wan cursed under her breath. This was supposed to be an easy job, in and out before anyone noticed. "Fine, plot a course out of here. We'll find another score." But before Taiyang could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Every sensor lit up at once, showing readings that made no sense. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Spatial distortions that violated known physics. "What is that?" Yanji demanded, staring at her displays. G1 looked at the main view screen. Space itself seemed to be twisting, reality bending around a point that grew brighter and brighter, and then something appeared. Not gradually, but all at once. As if it had always been there, and they were only now allowed to see it. A planet. It hung in space, where nothing should be. A blue and green world surrounded by a network of artificial structures that made collective technology look primitive. Defensive satellites the size of cities. Energy shields that shimmered across entire hemispheres. Weapons platforms that radiated power like small suns. "Taiyang, where are we?" Giwan's voice came out as a whisper. Her navigator checked and rechecked his instruments. "These are the Sol coordinates. Old Earth system. But Captain, nothing's supposed to be here. This system has been empty for 700 years. The collective patrol ship appeared on their sensors, accelerating toward them. But it wasn't coming to arrest G1 anymore. It took up a position between the stray star and the mysterious planet. Weapons powering up. A message crackled across all frequencies. The voice was human, speaking in a dozen languages at once. "This is Earth. We have returned. All vessels are ordered to withdraw to a safe distance while we establish communications. Any aggressive action will be met with appropriate response." Earth. The word hung in the air like a prayer or a curse. Guan had heard stories about Earth all her life. The lost world, the paradise that vanished, the home humanity would never see again. Every culture had their own version of the tale. Some said Earth had been destroyed. Others claimed it had ascended to a higher plane of existence. A few insisted it would return one day to save humanity from itself. Guan had never believed any of it. Earth was dead, had been dead for centuries. And yet here it was, impossible and real. Surrounded by technology that made her ship look like a stone tool, the collective patrol ship broadcast a warning. "Unknown planet. You are in violation of collective space. Identify yourself immediately or face consequences. The response was calm, almost amused. We are humanity's first home. We have claimed no territory that was not originally ours. We request a diplomatic meeting with representatives of the Collective Council and the scattered human colonies. We have much to discuss. More collective ships were arriving now, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in flashes of light. Not just patrol boats, but cruisers, battleships, even a Valari science vessel. The planet called Earth remained calm. Its defenses active, but not aggressive. Jiwan realized she was holding her breath. Whatever was happening, it would change everything. The collective had maintained order for thousands of years. Humanity had been a minor species, barely worth noticing. But if Earth had truly returned, if it possessed technology that advanced, then the entire balance of power in the galaxy might shift. Captain Taiyang said quietly, "What do we do?" "Good question." Giwan could run, try to escape before things got violent. She could stay and watch history unfold. Or she could do something incredibly stupid and try to make contact with Earth herself. She smiled. Stupid had always been her style. The collective council chamber was ancient. Built by the Valari 10,000 years ago from materials that would last until the stars themselves died. High Counselor Valeris Prime stood at the center, his tall figure radiating the calm logic his species was known for. But even he could not hide the tension in his movements. Around him, representatives from the 7 collective species argued in a dozen languages. "This is an invasion," War Master Krelvok of the Corvin Empire growled. His massive, armored form loomed over the other delegates. "An unknown force appears in our territory with weapons beyond our understanding. We should destroy it before it destroys us." "We don't know that it's hostile," a whisper representative said, its voice like wind through crystals. "The entity calling itself Earth has made no aggressive moves. It has only requested dialogue. It claims to be humanity's lost world," Valaris Prime said. "Our records confirm that a planet called Earth did exist in that system 700 years ago. It vanished without explanation. If it has truly returned, we must understand what happened and why." The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted immediate military action. Others urged caution and study. The younger species, those who had joined the collective in the last few millennia, worried about what this meant for the established order. If Earth possessed technology that advanced, could challenge the ancient species' authority. Finally, Valaris Prime made his decision. "We will send a delegation. Representatives from the collective and from humanity's scattered colonies. They will make contact with this Earth and determine its intentions. Until we know more, all military forces are ordered to defensive positions only. We will not fire first, but we will be ready if this is a threat." That was how Giwan found herself aboard a collective diplomatic vessel 3 days later. Still trying to understand how a scavenger like her had ended up representing humanity? The answer was simple and complicated. Most human factions were too busy fighting each other to agree on delegates. The few who did send representatives were politicians and military officers, people the collective didn't trust. But Jawan had been there when Earth appeared. She had witnessed it firsthand, and she was independent, not aligned with any major faction. That made her acceptable to everyone, if only barely. Counselor Minho Kong from New Terra sat across from her in the ship's common room. He was old, maybe 70, with silver hair and tired eyes. New Terra was what the Mars colony called itself now, a world of 20 million people living in vast underground cities. They were the closest thing humanity had to a unified government. "You don't look like a diplomat," Minho said. Studying her with obvious doubt, "That's because I'm not." Giwan leaned back in her chair. "I'm just here to make sure nobody forgets that there are humans out here who aren't politicians or soldiers. Regular people trying to survive." Admiral Sora Nam walked past, her military uniform crisp and perfect. She commanded the Free Fleet, a coalition of human warships from a dozen colonies. They weren't strong enough to challenge the collective, but they kept the worst human factions from slaughtering each other. Sora had barely spoken to Jiwan since they boarded, clearly unhappy about traveling with a criminal. The Valari captain of the diplomatic ship, Delvas, made his distrust clear as well. He watched the human delegates like they might start a fight at any moment. To be fair, Juan thought, humans did have a reputation for violence. 700 years of war had earned them that, as they approached the Sol system. Guan spent hours staring at the view screen. Earth grew larger, more real, more impossible. The planet looked exactly like the old pictures she had seen in museums. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns that seemed almost alive. But the structures surrounding it were nothing from ancient history. They were advanced beyond anything humanity had ever built, beyond anything the collective possessed. Captain Thelvas is receiving a message from Earth, Taiyang told her. He had insisted on coming along as her assistant, despite the danger. They're granting us permission to approach. The diplomatic ship descended through Earth's orbital network. Up close, the defensive satellites were enormous, each one larger than Jiwan's entire ship. Energy readings showed they were active, ready to respond to any threat. But they didn't fire. They simply watched as the ship entered the atmosphere. G1 pressed her face to the window like a child. She had never seen a planet like this. Most human worlds were harsh, barely habitable places that required domes or underground shelters. But Earth was paradise. Forests stretched to the horizon. Rivers sparkled in the sunlight. The air itself seemed to glow with life. They landed at a spaceport that appeared newly constructed, though it was built with technology that made it seem ancient and futuristic at once. As Giwan walked down the landing ramp, she took her first breath of Earth's air. It was clean and sweet, filled with scents she couldn't identify. Flowers, maybe, or just the smell of a healthy world. A man waited for them on the landing pad. He looked young, maybe 35, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or military. But there was something about him that suggested immense age, as if he had seen centuries pass. "Welcome home," he said, in perfect, standard human language. "I am Director Sung Park. On behalf of Earth, I greet our distant children and our new friends from the collective. Please, follow me. We have much to discuss." The group followed Sung into a building that seemed to grow from the ground itself, all smooth curves and natural materials. Inside, the walls showed images of Earth's history. Gia-wan saw the old nations, the wars, the industrial age, the space age, and then the images showed something else. A blinding light. Reality tearing open. Earth being pulled through a gap in space into somewhere else. 700 years ago we were taken, Song said as they walked. An entity we call the Architects removed Earth from this universe and placed us in a pocket dimension. A testing ground. They wanted to see if humanity could survive impossible challenges, if we could evolve fast enough to become something more than we were. Why? Valaris Prime asked. The High Counselor had joined them via hologram, his tall form flickering slightly. What purpose would such a test serve? Sung stopped in front of an image that made Jiwan's blood run cold. It showed a creature that hurt to look at, something that existed in too many dimensions at once. An architect. They were cultivating species, Sung said quietly. Testing them, forcing them to evolve, selecting the strongest for some purpose we never fully understood. We were test number 247. Of those tests, only 3 species ever survived. Earth is the first to escape. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the image of the architect, trying to comprehend what they were hearing. For 700 years we fought, Sung continued. The architects filled our prison with hostile environments, deadly creatures, challenges designed to break us. Most of humanity died in the first decade. But those who survived, learned, adapted, evolved. We reverse-engineered their technology. We developed new sciences, new weapons. We became something more than we were. And the architects? Minho asked, his voice shaking. Sung's expression hardened. We killed them. Every single one in our dimension. It took us 650 years, but we hunted them down and destroyed them. Then we found the way home and took it. The implications crashed over G1 like a wave. Earth hadn't just survived. They had won a war against beings powerful enough to move planets between dimensions. They had become something terrifying. Director Sung led them deeper into the facility. Past windows that showed Earth's restored surface, Ji-won saw cities that seemed to blend seamlessly with nature, buildings that grew like trees, transportation systems that moved without sound or visible power. The people walking outside looked healthy and content. Nothing like the desperate survivors she had expected. "You're wondering how we survived with our humanity intact?" Sung said, as if reading her thoughts. "The truth is, we almost didn't. In the early years, when billions were dying, when the architects sent wave after wave of monsters against us, we nearly broke. We had wars among ourselves, fought over the few safe zones that remained. Some groups turned to cannibalism. Others went mad and threw themselves at the enemy in suicide attacks." He stopped at a memorial wall covered in names. Billions of names carved into stone that seemed to go on forever. But then we remembered something. We were all that remained of humanity. If we destroyed ourselves, everything our species had ever been would die with us. So we chose to unify. Not under a government or a leader, but under a single purpose: survival. And more than survival, victory. Admiral Sora stepped closer to the wall, running her fingers over the names. How many died? 3 billion in the first 10 years, another billion over the next century. By the time we stabilized, only 5 billion of Earth's original 9 billion remained. We learned to fight, to adapt, to use the architect's own technology against them. And we became very good at it. They entered a large chamber filled with displays showing weapons and technology. Gi-won recognized nothing. These weren't just advanced versions of existing tools. They were based on completely different principles, sciences that the collective had never discovered. "This is a dimensional phase disruptor," Sung said, gesturing to a small device. "It can shift matter between realities, making it impossible for conventional weapons to hit their target. This is a neural interface that allows humans to directly control machines with thought. This is a power generator that pulls energy from parallel dimensions. We have thousands of such technologies, all developed through necessity." Valaris Prime's hologram flickered as he examined the displays. The implications are staggering. With this technology, you could reshape the galaxy. You could conquer the collective if you wished. "We don't wish to conquer anyone," Sung said firmly. "We've had enough of war. But we will not be threatened or diminished. We're offering the scattered human colonies a choice. Reunification under a new Terran Union. We'll share our technology. We'll provide protection, help build a better future. But in return, humanity must stand united. No more petty wars. No more factions destroying each other over resources or ideology." Minho looked troubled. "Many colonies won't accept that. They've built their own cultures over 7 centuries. They'll see this as Earth trying to dominate them." "Then they're free to refuse," Sung said. "We won't force anyone. But the offer stands. As for the collective, we request a seat on the council as an equal member. Not a minor species to be tolerated but ignored." The Corvin War Master's hologram appeared beside Valaris Prime, his scarred face twisted in anger. "You think you can simply demand a seat among the ancients? The collective has maintained order for 10,000 years. We will not be dictated to by upstart humans. No matter what technology you stole from your captors, you stole nothing," Sung said calmly. "We earned everything through blood and sacrifice. But I understand your concerns. Perhaps a demonstration would help." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Song's expression remained calm, but Ji-won saw something flicker in his eyes. Not fear, but anticipation. "It seems the demonstration is arriving ahead of schedule," he said. On the holographic displays, space above Earth lit up with ship signatures. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Guan recognized the profiles. Corvin warships, the Empire's finest battle fleet. And mixed among them were human vessels, ships from colonies that had allied with the Corvin against Earth's authority. "The Ares Confederacy," Sora said bitterly. "They've always believed that military strength was humanity's only path to respect. They must have convinced the Corvin that Earth is a threat. Valaris Prime's hologram turned to face the Corvin War Master. You attack without council approval? This violates our most fundamental laws. Laws written by species who never faced a true threat, the War Master growled. This Earth is dangerous. Better to eliminate it now, before it grows stronger. My fleet will show these evolved humans that power means nothing without the wisdom to use it. The Corvin fleet began its attack run, weapons charging. Juan watched on the displays as thousands of missiles launched. Energy beams fired, projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. It was enough firepower to crack a planet, to turn Earth into a burning wasteland, and Earth's defenses activated. What happened next occurred too fast for Juan's eyes to fully process. The space around Earth rippled, reality bending in ways that made her head hurt. The missiles didn't explode. They simply stopped existing in normal space, phased into some other dimension. The energy beams scattered against shields that operated on principles Giwan couldn't begin to understand. The projectiles slowed and halted, suspended in frozen time. Then Earth responded. But it wasn't a counterattack. Instead, pulses of energy washed over the Corvin fleet, passing through shields and armor like they weren't there. Every ship, Corvin and human alike, went dark. Weapons powered down. Engines shut off. Life support remained active, but nothing else functioned. The entire battle fleet hung helpless in space. Disabled in less than 30 seconds. Sung's voice broadcast across all frequencies, calm and clear. We have disabled your fleet without causing casualties. Your crews are unharmed, your ships intact. But understand this, we could have destroyed you just as easily. We choose not to kill. We choose peace. But do not mistake our mercy for weakness. On the displays, Giwan saw Corvin warriors pounding on their consoles, trying desperately to restart their systems. The human ships from the Ares Confederacy floated silently, their crews probably in shock. We will restore power to your vessels in 1 hour, Soon continued. Use that time to consider whether violence serves your interests. Earth has no desire for war, but we will defend ourselves and our children across the stars. The choice of peace or conflict is yours. The War Master's hologram flickered and vanished. Valaris Prime remained, his logical mind clearly working through the implications of what he had just witnessed. You could have destroyed them, the High Counselor said quietly. Yes, Sung agreed, and it would have been easy. But we've seen enough death. We've killed enough. The architects taught us that power without restraint leads only to darkness. We became stronger than them, but we refused to become like them. Guan found herself trembling. She had grown up believing that humanity was weak, that the scattered colonies survived only because the collective allowed it. But Earth had just disabled the most powerful military force in the galaxy without even trying. And they had done it with mercy, proving they were not only strong but wise. What happens now? Minho asked, smiled. Now we talk. Really talk. About the future, about unity, about humanity's place in this galaxy. And about the greater threat that still exists beyond the darkness between stars. Greater threat, Sora demanded. The architects we killed were servants, Sung said. Agents of something older and more terrible. The primordials. They exist in the deep void between galaxies, cultivating species across the cosmos for purposes we barely understand. We destroyed their workers in our dimension, but the masters remain. One day they may return. And when they do, every species in this galaxy will need to stand together. The collective council chamber was fuller than it had been in centuries. Every member species sent their highest representatives, not as holograms, but in person. The ancient hall, built to inspire awe and respect for the established order, now felt different. The balance of power that had existed for 10,000 years had shifted in a single day. G1 sat in the observation gallery with other human delegates, watching as the council debated Earth's request for membership. Below, Valaris Prime stood at the center, his tall form radiating careful thought. The Corvin War Master was notably absent, recalled to his homeworld in disgrace after the failed attack. In his place sat a younger Corvan diplomat who looked far less eager for conflict. "The question before us is unprecedented," Velaris Prime said to the assembly. "We have always required species to prove themselves worthy over centuries before granting full council membership. Earth asks us to grant it immediately, based solely on technological superiority. If we agree, we establish a dangerous precedent. If we refuse, we risk conflict with a power that has already demonstrated its ability to defeat our finest military forces." A whispered delegate spoke, its voice like distant chimes. "But is it truly about military power? Earth offered us something far more valuable than weapons. They have offered to share their dimensional gate technology freely." That had been Soon's masterstroke, G1 thought. 3 days after disabling the Corvan fleet, Earth had unveiled a network of gates that could connect the entire galaxy. Travel that once took months or years could be accomplished in minutes. Trade, communication, cultural exchange, all would become effortless. And Earth offered it to everyone, asking nothing in return except recognition as equals. Free access to such technology would revolutionize the galaxy, a delegate from the Kelthera Collective said. Our merchant ships could reach markets in hours instead of weeks. Scientific research could be shared instantaneously. The benefits are immeasurable. And the risks? Demanded a Tarsian representative. How do we know these gates are safe? How do we know Earth won't use them as weapons, transporting armies directly onto our worlds? Sung had anticipated that concern. Earth had invited scientists from every collective species to study the gate technology, to verify its safety and ensure it couldn't be weaponized. The reports had been unanimous. The gates were exactly what Earth claimed. A transportation network with built-in safeguards that prevented military use. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported Earth's membership enthusiastically, seeing the gates and other shared technologies as a golden age for the galaxy. Others remained cautious, worried about disrupting the ancient order. But slowly, inexorably, the tide turned in Earth's favor. Velaris Prime called for a vote. All those in favor of granting Earth full membership in the Collective Council indicate now. The tally appeared on holographic displays. 4 species voted yes immediately. 2 voted no. 1 abstained. Everything came down to the Valar, the eldest and most respected of the collective species. Velaris Prime was silent for a long moment. Juan held her breath, watching the High Counselor's face for any hint of his decision. "Throughout my long life," Velaris Prime finally said, "I have believed that wisdom comes with age, that the ancient species must guide the younger ones with patience and care. But I have watched Earth carefully these past weeks. I have studied their history, their survival, their choices. They could have returned as conquerors. They had the power to dominate this galaxy, and none could have stopped them. Instead, they chose peace. They chose to share rather than hoard. They chose mercy over vengeance." He paused, looking directly at the human delegation. "These are not the actions of a species driven by power. These are the actions of a species that has learned wisdom through terrible hardship. The Valari vote yes. Welcome to the Collective Council, humanity. May you help us build a better future for all." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates cheered. Others looked worried, but it was done. After 700 years as scattered, struggling survivors, humanity had taken its place among the galaxy's ruling species. Guan found herself crying, though she wasn't sure why. She had spent her whole life on the fringes, never caring about politics or grand ideals. But this moment felt important in ways she couldn't fully explain. Counselor Minho found her after the session ended. The old diplomat was smiling, something she had never seen him do. "The scattered colonies are already responding," he told her. "Most are agreeing to join the Terran Union. Some remain skeptical, but even they're willing to negotiate. For the first time in 7 centuries, humanity might actually be unified." "What about the ones who attacked Earth with the Corvan?" Guan asked. "Earth is offering them full amnesty. No punishment, no retribution, just an invitation to come home." Minho shook his head in wonder. They really meant what they said about having enough of war. The first reunification summit took place on Earth 2 months later. Guan walked through the streets of the capital city, marveling at the sheer beauty of it all. Delegates from 1,000 human worlds filled the parks and buildings. People who looked wildly different from each other after centuries of adaptation to different environments. Some were tall and thin, adapted to low gravity. Others were stocky and strong from high-gravity worlds. A few had modified themselves genetically, sporting extra limbs or enhanced senses, but they were all human. All children of Earth, turned home after the longest separation in history, Director Sung addressed the assembly in an amphitheater built into a hillside overlooking the ocean. Guan sat with her crew Taiyang and Yunji beside her. They had become minor celebrities, the scavengers who witnessed Earth's return firsthand. "We are not here to rule you," Sung told the gathered delegates. "Earth doesn't want subjects or servants. We want family. We want to help our scattered children build better lives, safer worlds, brighter futures. Some of you will join the Terran Union completely. Others will maintain independence while accepting our aid. Still others may choose to go their own way. All paths are acceptable. All are honored." He gestured to the sky where the first dimensional gates were already under construction. "The galaxy is changing. The old barriers that kept us isolated are falling. In the years to come, we will face challenges together. The primordials still exist beyond the void. Other threats may emerge. But we will face them, as humanity always has, by adapting, surviving, and refusing to break." The crowd cheered. Guan found herself cheering too, caught up in the moment, despite her natural cynicism. Later, she stood on the beach watching the sunset paint the sky in colors she had never seen on her harsh home worlds. Sung joined her, the director having slipped away from the official ceremonies. "You don't seem entirely happy," he observed. Guan shrugged. "I'm not used to optimism. Spent my whole life assuming tomorrow would be worse than today. This all feels too good to be real." "It's real," Soon assured her, "but it's also fragile. Unity is harder to maintain than division. Peace requires constant work. We'll stumble. We'll make mistakes. Some humans will reject what we're building and go back to fighting. But at least now, we have a chance." "What was it like?" Guan asked quietly. "Those 700 years? Fighting the architects. Losing everyone you loved." Sung was silent for a long time. "It was hell. Every day was a battle just to survive, let alone win. I watched my family die, my friends, my entire world burning around me. There were days I wanted to give up, to just let the darkness take me. But you didn't. No. Because every time I thought about surrendering, I remembered why we were fighting. Not just for ourselves, but for the future. For the children we might never meet but who deserved a chance to exist. That hope kept us going through the worst of it." He smiled at her. "You remind me of the survivors. The ones who made it through the early years. Tough, skeptical, refusing to trust easy answers. We need people like you to keep us honest, to make sure we don't forget where we came from." Jawan looked up at the stars, visible now as the sun set. Somewhere up there her ship waited. The stray star, old and battered and home. "What will you do now?" Sung asked. "Keep flying, I guess. Though I suppose I'll need to find legal work now that humanity's all respectable." She grinned. "Maybe explore some of those worlds the gates will open up. See what's out there. The gates will reach everywhere within a year. The whole galaxy will be connected. It's going to be an interesting time." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the alien sunset over Earth's restored oceans. Behind them in the city, thousands of humans from hundreds of worlds celebrated their reunion. Above them, the stars waited, full of wonder and danger and possibility. Humanity had vanished once, torn from its home and forced to survive the impossible. But it had returned stronger, wiser, and united in ways the scattered colonies had never been. The future would bring new challenges. The primordials still lurked in the deep void. The collective would need time to adjust to humanity's new status. Internal divisions would continue to test Earth's commitment to unity. But for tonight at least, there was hope. Real hope earned through centuries of suffering and sacrifice. And that was enough.